Hi, everybody. Like David said, I'm Thomas Lamb, CEO of MYRIAD Uranium. Please forgive me, my flights were all screwed up and sleep didn't really happen, so if I misspeak, that's why. So we're a CSE listed company, as you see there. You see our symbols. We're fairly new. Our Copper Mountain, Wyoming project was, the deal for it was done October 18th. So you may not have heard of us. We're telling the world now, so I'm excited to tell you. Disclaimers, et cetera, of course, forward-looking statements, but also all the numbers I talk about, uranium pounds in the ground, et cetera, these are all non-compliant, non-43101. They're not 43101 yet. So I have that up because sometimes I give this presentation virtually and they don't know, people don't know who is there talking to them. You can see my bio. I just wanted to summarize some important points of the company right out of the gate. We have two very exciting projects that are really interesting, and I'll tell you why. Really high insider ownership, including yours truly, as I mentioned, and I've invested a lot of my own money. There's no cheap stock, and I've invested, call it $300,000 above 20 cents. Okay, no cheap stock. We have some really interesting shareholders who have done some deep dives, and as you see there, we do have a track record, our team and myself, of building companies and making investors money, and done some really good deals. And we're going to try to do the same thing here. And our technical team is really exceptional. Our geologist, chief geologist, is George Vanderwalt. He's right there with his hand up. And if you have technical questions, he'd be happy to talk to you after the presentation. Okay, so I'm going to skip over the why uranium is exciting and et cetera slides because I think you all understand that very well. How do I back up? Is that with the red one here? I will mention our Wyoming project. It's a little bit out of order, but our Wyoming project, Copper Mountain, was previously partly owned by Strathmore, which is the predecessor to all these F companies and et cetera, Strathmore. And the other part of our license area was owned by Neutron Energy, which is now part of Encore. Neither could get the whole thing. Their internal conversations were about getting the other half and consolidating. Well, we're the first group that has it all since 1982, when Union Pacific had it. Okay, why prices are rising, I'm going to skip that. Wyoming, I think you all know a lot about Wyoming already and why it's the place to be. This is our location in Wyoming, basically right in the center. We're a little bit off to the west of all the main operations, but we're not far. Okay, let's get to the heart of it. We have two projects. We started out with a big land package in Niger in West Africa, right up against MYRIAD, world's second largest deposit, sharing a border with MYRIAD, GoviEx's Madawela, and to the northern part of our property, Somer, Cominac, operations of Orano, et cetera. And then one of our other licenses in Niger, a big 450 square kilometer licenses just down the street from Global Atomic's DASA, on the same fault, on the same Azusa fault. In fact, the license sits on the intersection of that Azusa fault and the fault, the Arlet fault that emanates out of MYRIAD. Position A in Niger, hoping to emulate Global Atomic. In fact, their former Chief Operating Officer, Ron Hallis, has joined us on our technical committee, and the hope is that we can do what Global Atomic has done. So that was the plan until July, when there was a coup in Niger, as we all know. So we had to do something. The company was, the future's uncertain at that point. We had to find a pivot, excuse me, and there's a company called Rush Rare Metals. You should all take a note of it. rushraremetals.com is their website. They had a Wyoming project as their second project. They didn't know a lot about it. There was a technical report from about 11 months ago that said this Copper Mountain project, past producer, had a lot of work done on it, but we don't really know much about it. You either have to find data or you're going to have to start a maiden drill program to figure it out. Well, a month later, the CEO of Rush was driving around the backwoods of Wyoming and encountered a rancher who, when they stopped and talked, said, we have a lot of data at our house from dating back 40 years. You should come and take a look at it. Pete, the CEO of Rush, went over for coffee, looked at the data. It was like Indiana Jones and the Ark of the Covenant, and very exciting moment. And cash on the barrel, got the data. A month later, Pete and I rented a truck. We drove to Wyoming from Vancouver, picked it all up, drove it back to Vancouver, and we were in the letter of intent phase, due diligence month, and going through this data. And it revealed this amazing story that neither of us were aware of when we signed the deal. And thank you, Pete. He's not here. He was here earlier. We completed the deal, consummated the deal. We were in letter of intent phase. Really grateful that we completed. It's a good deal for both sides if you get into the terms. Very exciting. Copper Mountain, Wyoming, again, used to be part owned by Neutron, which is now part of Encore, or was acquired by Encore, and then part owned by Strathmore, and then a few others. Okay, so this is Copper Mountain. The map has evolved, or is evolving. So this isn't quite what it, we're throwing a blanket over it. We have a 75%, Myriad Uranium has a 75% earnable interest in it, with a path to 100 if we need to for transaction purposes, et cetera. So all this data, what did it reveal? It revealed what you see there, that Union Pacific drilled about 2,000 boreholes. They identified 6+ deposits, and they were planning a mine, 3 pits, with a central pit at North Canning, which is somewhere on the map. Maybe you can discern it there. So they estimated the potential. I don't mean to read the slide out to you. I can know that you can read it yourselves. But 2 out of the, at the time 5, but later 6 deposits, potential, call it an exploration target, up to 63.8 million pounds. And then the resources they estimated, you see there, between 15 and 30 million. Now, this was for internal mine planning purposes. This is not a public company trying to promote itself. They were doing an analysis with, because they were hoping to start mining. This is 1979, 3 Mile Island, prices falling fast. They eventually aborted the plan to start mining, as everybody did in the United States, but they were just about to proceed. So they did a lot of work on it. The ore, highly leachable, a lot of it right up into the mid-90s. Determined that it does not need milling, so you could put it on you could heap it, leach it, et cetera. And they were also, even back in the 1970s, optimistic about ISR. They talked about it, but they didn't confirm it. So we have on our technical committee, and in fact, an important part of the origin of this story, David Miller, who many people know. He's an ISR expert for Areva and Orano. He's also fairly optimistic about ISR, but to be confirmed. We don't know. We just announced last week the acquisition of the Knob prospect at the bottom left, and the data talks about 500,000 pounds at 0.15, and big potential for expansion. In fact, all the historical documents and our current thinking about it are optimistic about expanding much higher grade, or higher grades. I shouldn't use words like much, et cetera, but anyway, grades, volumes. There's a lot we can do around here, and the reasons are, it's compelling. So this is a slide I didn't used to include in the deck, but I can now, because we're on an ongoing process here of again throwing a blanket over the area. First time since 1982 that it'll all be unified. You can see at the bottom right, there's a lot of formerly producing mines or or several, a number in our area, project area. Arrowhead Mine was the first one, produced 500,000 pounds at 1.5%, was it? And you can see Bonanza Mine, bottom right, that's a mine there. That's a nice grade and a fair amount of production, et cetera. So it's dotted. There's lots of interesting stuff going on in the neighborhood. So one of the exciting aspects is the exploration potential. You can see the quote there. But we're really excited about that. And if any of you want to dive into it, please talk to George, sitting over there. And at the end, you'll have my WhatsApp number. You can email me. Happy to talk anytime. We are looking at mining, the mining potential. We'll be talking about that soon publicly because, you know, it's a possibility. And now, back to the story. A year ago, we were sitting at the same market cap, or even a little bit higher, at $50 uranium when we just had our Niger licenses. And that's because they're very interesting and exciting. And, but of course, there was a military coup. I would say that our focus is Wyoming now. But this Niger asset package represents a real kicker. If you follow Global Atomic, they're a proxy for how things are going in Niger. Of course, explorers lag behind, et cetera. We're not as, you know, our situations are more uncertain than a big Global Atomic, et cetera. But if you're looking at investing in our company, I would think you should think about our Niger assets as a big kicker optionality. We could spin them out, things stabilize. They could be, you know, keep them in the company, do something with them, transact. This is our northern license in Niger. Used to be an Areva license. After Fukushima, series of events, they ended up having to relinquish it. But we're only 8 kilometers from MYRIAD. This doesn't show all the structures as well as it could, but that circle we call MYRIAD North. 65 drill holes were planned by Areva, which they never got to. So that is part of our plan there. Matawela is just up to the right, as you can see, and the operating mine is to the north. It's a very exciting area, and of course, everybody who was in Niger is pretty upset about the coup because, well, anyway, hopefully we can get there and advance this. This is our middle license of the 4 licenses in Niger called Afude. Global Atomic Stasa is just up to the right, about 19 kilometers, and MYRIAD is straight north. So Areva did a bunch of work on these projects, by the way. They spent millions of dollars. They drilled about 165 holes. You can see 94 of them drilled in Afude. On the right-hand side, towards the eastern border, Areva shot seismic, and it's very interesting data. We have the data. We're happy to get into that with anybody who's interested. And that is going to help us target some really nice drilling when we get the chance. So the go forward, we have historical resources non-compliant. We want to bring them current. So the more data we have some of the data that we need to do that. We need more. We either have to find it or drill. Well, this is going to be a combination of it, and the ratio is going to depend on how much more data we find. Anyway, this summer we're going to, well, as soon as we can, we're going to get on the ground. We're going to uncap holes. We're going to send our own probes down and do some drilling. So we want to bring our resources current. We want to explore. We understand the high grade now much better, even just after a couple months of looking at the data. We understand how the high grade works, so we're going to increase grade and volumes. We're really optimistic about that. We are adding, so that this data package, I mean, it wasn't just Union Pacific. There have been other owners, especially before Union Pacific, who explored. We know a lot about the area. There are, high-grade targets. There are really interesting places to add. So we're in the process of acquiring more acreage, and that's exciting. And we have work that we have planned for this summer, and that's going to be interesting. We're going to test for ISR. I don't know how soon we're going to be able to test for ISR amenability. That will, in total, cost the initial phases maybe $1.1 million according to our budget. So we'll see. And then keep an eye on Niger. We're trying to think about what to do there exactly. What's next? Cap structure. For our stage, I think we're really interesting. We only have 34.2 million shares out. Again, no cheap stock, really high insider ownership, and a lot of the float, we know, those are all people that I brought in or we brought in too. So it's a really nice cap structure. Leadership, you'll see I'm there. I've gotten lucky over the years. I started a company in 2005 called Gold Group with a friend from, used to play Dungeons and Dragons when we were 9 years old. And we started from scratch, put our own $10,000 each in it. 5 years later, it was worth a few $100 million, and we made people a lot of money. And from there, done interesting things and had a few other lucky bounces. So we build companies, made people money, and we have a really good board, really designed for a much bigger company, but also entrepreneurial and ambitious. Nelson Lamb, our CFO, Price Waterhouse, et cetera, is not related, just a coincidence. So, you can read some of these things. So, David Miller, the second from the left, in situ recovery expert. He was the original vendor 3 years ago of the core claims into Rush Rare Metals. My friend Pete, the CEO of our partner company in Wyoming, very reluctantly did this deal. He was pressured by a shareholder, said you should get these licenses, and he did it. And David is connected to that, and we're so glad. Obviously, we're all delighted this has worked out much, much better than we could ever imagine. But in situ recovery expert. I told you on the far right there, Ron Hallis, he was the COO of Global Atomic. Talk to him all the time. He's really excited about what we're doing. And the general manager of Union Pacific's exploration throughout the 1970s, Jim Davis, on the far right, is on our technical committee. He's 90 years old. He's extremely excited we're back there. He knows the place inside and out. And I talk to him all the time. And he's going to help us do all sorts of interesting things. There's much more to Copper Mountain than much more to come. There's all sorts of interesting things about it. I can't wait to tell everybody in due course. And he's part of our team now. And he's sharp as a tack. So that is very cool. These are property option details, a lot of detail in there. Bottom line, we have to spend $5.5 million over 4 years to get to 75%. There's some share payments and other things in there, and there's a big kicker at the back to get this deal done. The first $50 million in profit is split 50-50 from production. That's relevant. You'll be able to get the details. So finally, and geez, I haven't left much time. I'm sorry about that. We think it's a really high, I call it high torque, because of the structure of the company, low share count, high insider ownership, our goal, my goal, because of what's happened in my life, et cetera, and the way our team does these things. The goal is to have a big exit for everybody. So everybody's goal is that probably. But anyway, we think we're structured that way. We don't have cheap shares, and we all invest a lot of our own money. What else? Thank you very much, everybody. And please message me. I'm happy to interact.